If you've watched any of my videos lately, you've probably noticed one thing. I am deeply obsessed with my forever world in The Sims 4. This really has been the playstyle and even mindset shift that has helped me to fall back in love with The Sims 4, as even though I adore this series, I developed a pretty distanced relationship with this game over the last few years. But if you're sitting there thinking, wait, what even is a forever world? Let me explain. The concept originally came from our friends over in the Minecraft community, and basically you create one world and that's it. No deleting it, no starting over every time a new update or DLC drops. You build something that endures throughout periods where you don't play the game as much or even at all. You commit. This is the save that you always come back to. You relish in seeing the sim that you were playing with 6 months ago interacting with the one that you're obsessed with right now. Each sim, build, and household you have added since starting your forever world marks a memory or phase of what you were enjoying at a particular time. And in The Sims 4, I found that this commitment can be game-changing because, let's be honest, how many times have you started a brand new save on a random Saturday morning, you've not put much thought into it because you're just kind of bored, and even though you're full of hope and good intentions, you abandon it by lunchtime? A forever world breaks this cycle. It encourages deeper, more intentional gameplay, and a lot more fun in my experience so far. So today I'm walking you through exactly how to start your own Sims 4 forever world, and by the end of the video you should feel ready to hit play within 30 minutes or about 2 hours depending on how much initial world admin you want to do. Also stick around to the end because I'm sharing tips for actually staying committed to your forever world long term, because again, here we are breaking our toxic save abandoning cycle for good. If you're new here, I'm Yasmin. I make videos to help cozy players like you go from feeling bored or burnt out in your favorite life sim games to finding fun and fulfilling gameplay. My question of the day is, what's the #1 reason you usually give up on your save files? Let us know in the comments down below. But without further ado, let's get into it. So I think that a huge component of starting a forever world in The Sims 4 all boils down to breaking these kind of unproductive cycles that you have with the game. And you might be thinking, Yasmin, what do you mean unproductive? Like, why are we thinking about productivity when we're playing a video game? But let me explain. I think at least a few of you will know what I mean when I say that, again, you start a new save file on a random morning, you create a really pretty sim and a nice house, and then you play in live mode for maybe about 20 minutes before you realize, what am I doing here? I'm not having fun. You've shut down the game and you've pulled up your favorite streamer who's playing the game instead. And you kind of walk away from that play session feeling a little bit unsatisfied and hollow even. I was talking about this on stream recently, but being adults, we have responsibilities now, you know? Maybe we've got kids or partners or other family members that depend on us, we've got rent to pay, etc. And so all of that means that we don't have as much time to enjoy our hobbies like playing The Sims as much as we used to when we were kids. So why are we still bothering with these quite hollow experiences when, with a little bit of kind of forethought and activation energy, I guess you could say, we could actually just be having fun with the game? And for me, this really has been starting my forever world in The Sims 4. Now, this next bit might sound a little bit dramatic and ooh, but if you're watching this video, I'm going to assume that you take playing The Sims seriously, and I mean that in the best way possible. And so because of this, I think that the first thing you should do before you even turn your game on is to make the process of setting up your forever world a little bit of a ritual. This could look like getting your environment super cozy, you know, getting the lighting right, maybe even light some candles, getting your favorite gaming snacks and drinks, and putting on a comforting show, or even just working through that backlog of gaming videos that you have in your YouTube watch later playlist in the background. So here you're going to want to grab out your favorite notepad or, you know, digital writing system and just note down some ideas all around starting your forever world. This doesn't have to be a perfect plan, but here are a few questions to really get you started. So again, these broad questions to consider are, what do I feel like playing right now? What are some kind of default gameplay crutches that you might have that you maybe default to that you don't really know know what you want to do in game, what are some parts of the game or packs that you maybe own that you haven't explored for a while or even at all perhaps, and what are some sim kind of storylines that you're interested in exploring as well. Again, I know that all of this might sound a little bit ooh and a little bit like icky if like journaling doesn't really come naturally to you, but with The Sims 4 being as incredibly open-ended as it is, the purpose of this exercise is to really get to the root of what you actually want to play and to build an emotional connection to your save file rather than accidentally falling into that kind of hollow create a sim that you don't really care about, play for a few hours, abandon, repeat cycle. By now, I'm sure that you're feeling super hyped to actually get into game, especially if you did this little pre-game ritual. So now it's time to actually start putting together your Sims 4 Forever world. Step 1 is super simple. You're going to open up your game and just click new game on the main menu. Technically, you could stop the video here, but I think that I've packed in lots more tips and tricks, so please keep watching, I guess. If you have the seasons pack installed, you'll be asked right off the bat what season you want to start playing in. Just go for whichever one you like. I usually like to go for the one that we're actually in real life, just to kind of mirror my outside surroundings to my in-game surroundings, because I actually don't want to go outside in real life. Also, because The Sims 4 forces you to, you will get plopped straight into CAS. Here you could actually make the first sim that you actually want to be playing with, or when I started my Forever world, I just kind of made a random dude and then jumped out of CAS and straight into edit world mode and deleted that guy, just because I didn't actually want to play with a sim that I'd created first off. I actually started playing with Summer Holiday from the BFF household. But anyway, step 2, now that we're out of CAS, you're going to want to head straight into the settings menu and check that you're happy with your aging settings. This is actually one of the things that I get asked the most questions about, which I didn't really expect when I started playing with my Forever world and sharing it with you guys. So as for my settings, I keep my lifespans set to normal, and I actually entirely disable aging for all Sims that aren't in the active household that I'm playing with right now. This is because I don't like my other active Sims that I'm, just not currently playing with. I don't want them to grow old and die when I'm not around. I don't want too much of their life to pass if I play with 6 other Sims for, a few months in real life before I eventually get back to them. Alternatively though, you could actually enable aging for all households but set the world to long lifespan. This means that your households and other townies will still experience a sense of progression, just much more gradually over time. For me though, my fear of all the pre-made Sims getting old, dying, and being replaced by really ugly ones kind of scares me too much out of that. But I also know that for some players, playing with a normal lifespan, it feels like everything moves too quickly. So this is another way to go, especially if you do like to see that neighborhood change over time. In my experience so far, playing on a normal lifespan, but actually jumping between a handful of different households, has kind of made me feel like I am actually playing on long lifespan. Again, I've been in this world for a few months at this point in real life, and it was only in the last couple of days that I had one of my Sims actually grow up into an adult. On to step 3 then. Similarly, check that you are happy with the neighborhood story settings. This is a super important step because if you don't check in with this now, within a couple of weeks of playtime, you could find that all houses are seriously just out of whack. The Goths have had 10 more babies and adopted 20 dogs, and they've moved into a starter apartment somewhere. So, you want to make sure that you're keeping an eye on this if you want to kind of not have to go in and fix everything eventually. However, though, you might want to toggle parts of it on or off, like random deaths potentially. And here's actually something to think about with aging as well. You could kind of chop and change the decisions that you make as you play, depending on, how you want things to be paced, how chaotic you want the world to feel, etc. Just because you make one set of decisions right when you start your Forever world does not mean that those have to be the ones that you stick to forever. With the less glamorous bits out the way then, it's now time to start thinking about gameplay. So step 4 of setting up your Sims 4 Forever world is to decide on a starting neighborhood or world that you really want to hone in on right off the bat. I would say that this step is optional, but if you're anything like me, you probably get overwhelmed quite easily in this game. To reduce these feelings, you might want to consider again starting in one world or neighborhoods. You'll have plenty of time to expand into later ones down the line because again, you're going to be playing in the save file for a really long time. So here are my tips for choosing a starting neighborhood/theme to go with it. Pick a build style that unifies all of your households in that area, but not a narrow gameplay theme. For example, if you decided to start in Chestnut Ridge, which came with the Horse Ranch pack, you might feel tempted to have each new household that you add to that area be exclusively focused on horse gameplay. However, that is the fastest way to make every household feel the same and to just get super bored really quickly. Instead, you might want to have each new household be unified by the kind of like ranch house aesthetic, but maybe much more broad animal focused, nature focused gameplay. For example, yes, you could have one household focus on, breeding and raising horses, and then another which leans more into content from the cottage living or even cats and dogs packs. Another household might go ham on farming and open up like a little farm shop that supplies all of its neighbors. And then you might even have like another bit more rogue household that is just, filled with one or two kind of faux ranch influencers, I guess, where, they make content and they live stream, but everything that they do on the farm is just quite like performative, and maybe you've hired like a gardener and ranch hands to actually tend to all the animals. As an example from my own Forever world, to those who might not be familiar with my channel, I have started in Willow Creek's Foundry Cove, and again, even though I started my save file months ago, I'm still here and I still love this neighborhood. So the unifying aesthetic that I've gone for is the kind of like container home vibe to match the industrial area that you see behind the neighborhood in the distance. But the unifying gameplay kind of broad theme, I guess, is that this is a starting neighborhood. It's where people come when they have dreams that they want to fulfill, potentially kind of coming to make a name for themselves. They maybe want to escape some things from their past, not really too sure about that, but it's gonna be cool to see how these Sims eventually kind of outgrow their container homes and then spread their wings into the wider world, and maybe later in their lives move into kind of different neighborhoods and stuff like that, which then makes room for new Sims to come in, which is really exciting. So building off this idea of picking your starting neighborhood, next you might want to consider adding some new NPCs or even community lots before you focus on your very first household and get into gameplay. If you're a wizard in CAS, you might want to make these Sims yourselves or pull some off of the gallery. Again, if you are focusing on just one neighborhood or kind of area of your save file, you might want to obviously kind of focus on placing them here. My key tip here though is to not place Sims and lots willy-nilly, but be intentional. Think about what would kind of make sense according to the, potential bit of story and lore that you're building up around this area, and don't get too in the weeds. Importantly, with all of this world setup process, or kind of world admin, as I guess you could call it, is to not let it be a hindrance to getting into live mode, but you want it to instead support your play in that mode instead. I know that this should sound obvious, but I think that this kind of, quote unquote work that goes into getting into the game can sometimes lead people to turning off the game before they've actually got into playing. And so to stop yourself, again, getting into the weeds with it all, I would actually suggest setting yourself a timer. This could be 10 minutes, this could be half an hour, again, don't go too crazy with it because you're going to be playing in the save file hopefully forever, so you're going to have time to spruce up every single world that you have eventually when you get around to it. And lastly, it's actually time to design your first sim. You might want to play with another household that already exists, you might want to create a friend or a family member of one of these pre-existing sims, or obviously creating your entirely new sim as well. By this point, I'm sure that you're absolutely brimming with ideas for who you want to play with first, especially if you did some of the kind of journaling setup stages that we were talking about earlier. The great thing about your forever world though is that the hard work is done now. Your world is set up, and if you decide that you're not a huge fan of the first sim that you started playing with, you know, today on this day when you start setting everything up, you can just switch things up and add another household somewhere else in your save file whenever you feel like it. Here, every new household just adds more depth and lore to the world that you've already created. So the final step is now to get into the game and have fun. Before I dive into my main tips for maintaining your longevity with your Sims 4 Forever world, I just wanted to quickly note that if you found value in this video so far, liking the video or even subscribing tells YouTube's algorithms that my content is worth showing to more intentional simmers like you, which is a massive help as we close in on 10k subscribers. Watching to the end is also a huge help, and a link to my Fourth Wall store where you can donate to support my work is linked down below. Thanks for listening to my spiel. Let's move on. Okay, so you've started your forever world. Here are some tips and tricks that have helped me to maintain my feeling of ultra obsession with my forever world save file and my active households within it. So number one is absolutely the most important, hands down, no questions asked, and that is to prevent your game against corruption. This might sound very silly, but I have seen lots of comments from players who have, you know, maybe not known it, but had forever worlds kind of going back years and years into their time with The Sims 4, and they have lost them because of some kind of corrupting bug or something. And they've lost years of progress again, which is absolutely devastating and heartbreaking. Here, my top tip is use the save as function as regularly as you can. I recommend probably doing this once every play session, especially if you like to play for a couple of hours at a time, but at least once a week. Just do it whenever you remember to. This means that if the worst should happen, you know, if you get some kind of game corrupting bug, you will be able to just go back to a previous version of the save file that you've made recently, so that then you don't have that much progress be lost. I also like to back up my saves on my external hard drive just in case something happens to my PC as well. My second tip is to track your household progress. The point of the Forever World is to kind of incrementally build up lore and connection to your Sims and between your households over time, for as long as you play The Sims 4 for, really. And so that is going to equate to like a lot of memories and connections and stuff like that over time. So I suggest that you find a way to track and store that information in a way that is external to your game and to your brain as well. To do this, I've created SavePal, which is my Forever World tracking tool in Notion, and you can find that in the link down below if you're interested in checking it out as well. One of my favorite sections in SavePal is the ability to track your kind of household and individual sim progress per each play session. So it's like a little journal or diary where you say what you did in that play session and what your goals are, so that then the next time you return to that household, even if, you know, it's a few days, a week, even a month, or even more later, you can actually see, oh hey, this was what I was working on last time, these are what I wanted to achieve next. And it kind of just decreases that, I guess, activation energy, and it helps you feel more motivated to be able to get into the households that, again, you've maybe not given as much love to recently. I honestly can't wait to see how full and flourishing my SavePal is going to be once I've been playing in my Forever World for, you know, a year or 2 or 3 or however long it goes on for. My third tip is to try shifting away as best as you can from the perfectionist's mindset, which I know in The Sims 4 is incredibly difficult to do, but hear me out. But first, honestly, I love every single one of you guys to bits, but I am going to call a few of you out right now in the most loving and peaceful way possible. But I have seen that a few of you guys have left, you know, notes in my comment sections saying that you've started a Forever World and then restarted it really quickly. Besties, this is not the point of the Forever World, okay? Again, I'm coming at you from love and a peaceful place. Hear me out, okay? This gameplay style really is an exercise on letting go of your Sims 4 perfectionism, which I suffer from too. Again, any issues like having Sims initial gameplay outcomes, you know, all of that stuff, not go exactly how you'd like, should not be a reason to restart. In your forever world, you're gonna have time to kind of fix these things over time. All of this is to say, again, don't let yourself get stuck in the weeds of the world design and managing everything all at once, because by this point, especially if you have a lot of worlds installed in your game, that is a lot of Sims and stories and households and characters to manage, and you kind of just can't. Especially now with the kind of like slight story progressions that are baked into the game, even if you have neighborhood stories disabled. So if you ever do get that urge, you know, not long into starting to play with your forever world, to restart and create a new one, here's my biggest top tip. Try to focus on a new project rather than starting an entirely new save. Whether you decide, hey, I'm actually not really vibing with this initial neighborhood or focus that I decided, go pick a new one. You know, maybe you don't even pick a whole neighborhood, maybe you just focus on one sim somewhere. You can kind of dive into all of those tidying aspects of the things that maybe got a bit messy and that maybe overwhelmed you and maybe made you want to start again later on whenever you feel like it. Or in a way, not even at all. I would say kind of out of sight, out of mind. If your sim ever encounters one of those messy households and you decide that you actually want them to become a bigger part of your Sim's story, maybe then you decide to go in and do some tidying there. So as an example from my own world, I've also been playing with Cassandra Goth in my initial starting neighborhood, and a few times I've had that pop up, say, you know, from Bella calling, being like, hey sweetie, I was just wondering, should me and your dad have new babies? And then I've always just kind of said like, do whatever you want, you know? And so I was shocked. I was, you know, aghast, mouth simply agape when I then eventually went over to their house and found that they had 2 new kids. Like literally, again, where did they come from? And so I think that part of the save file maintenance that I'm gonna have to do is eventually go in, age them up from their infant object status, you know, give them a bed somewhere and kind of stuff like that, you know? And my 4th and final tip today is to play with household rotation very loosely. I used to be a rotational Sims 4 player back in the day. Again, not super, you know, focused and all of that good stuff, but at some point down the line, I moved past that and just started making a new like save file per household that I was playing with. I don't really know why I made that shift though, reflecting back. And I think that that's where a lot of the magic in the game really was lost for me. So rotating between households with different gameplay focuses and objectives has been super fun. But importantly, I rotate between my households really loosely. I know that there are some video guides here on YouTube all about very, you know, focused and rigid and structured rotation between households in The Sims 4 and other previous Sims games, where you play with each house for exactly 1 week and then you move on and then da-da-da-da-da-da. But playing in your forever world should be fun and never feel like a chore. So, you know, if you've been playing with a household for a week and you think, oh, I should probably rotate to another one now, no, stop it. Stop that kind of like should, I feel like I should do this. No, if you're having fun with this household, stick with it, you know? Whether it's a day, a week, a month in real life, whatever it is, your other households can wait. You'll get to them when you feel like playing with them and when that feels fun, which I feel like sounds like that should be really obvious. But also, you know, don't feel like because you say, oh, I'm playing with this style of gameplay, I have to follow it. Nah, do what feels fun. And with that though, guys, you should feel ready to create and thrive in your own Sims 4 forever world. I feel like Bob Mortimer, when he releases a fish back into the water, being like, and away. Bob Mortimer really is like the pinnacle of underrated British culture and humour, I think. But before I end the video, I have to give a huge thank you to my new channel members. I launched this really recently and I'm so grateful to Stephanie, Catherine and Adriana for being our very first Soul Piece members, and to Amy M, who is our first Tiberium level member. Thank you so much for supporting the channel, guys. I put out a post which outlines what cool perks you can get as members of this channel, including including exclusive streams, gameplay polls, and my favourite is definitely the ability to add your own sim to my forever world, which will hopefully pop up as we play more. Once again, my question of the day is, what is the biggest struggle that causes you to drop off playing with a Sims 4 save file? Let us know in the comments down below. I love it when we get some dialogue going down there. Check out this video on the screen just here because YouTube thinks you'll love it. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you again soon.